Hey y'all, today we're going to take a second and talk about one of my favorite triangles, the 45-45-90 triangle. I like the 45-45-90 triangle because there's some relationships that will make our life a whole lot easier. Now, this is an isosceles triangle, which means that because the two angles are the same, 45-45, these two sides are the same. Because of that, we can use the same variable to talk about both of them. So let's call it x. X and x. Ooh, that was fun right there. Now, we'd like to try and find a relationship between this leg and this leg, which are the same, to the hypotenuse. Now, because of the Pythagorean theorem, we often call this a squared and b squared. Today we're going to call them x. Let's go ahead and call this c squared. So that's still our hypotenuse. That's still c. And so, let's try and set up some equations. That this x is x squared right here, just like the Pythagorean theorem would tell us, and x squared equals c squared. Alright, so x squared plus x squared equals c squared. Well, if I have x squared plus x squared, that can be converted into 2x squared. So if I have an apple here and an apple here, I got two apples, equals c squared. So let's finish this off to its logical conclusion. We've got the 2x squared and the c squared. So let's take the square root of both sides. Well, the square root of c squared is just c. We could talk about positive or negative c, but because we're talking about a distance, we only need the positive. Over here, we can take the square root of x squared, which is x, but then we end up with the square root of 2. We do end up with a pretty cool relationship here. We see that c is just whatever that side was times the square root of 2. So if I had a 45-45-90 triangle, check it out, I'll know that it's a 45-45 by saying that those two are the same. If I know that this side is 7, I also know that this side is 7 because they're the same, and this outside is 7 square root of 2. So based upon what we just saw, you should be able to find both x and y. Do it now, pause, then come back, and I'll give you the answers. Did you guys get it? Did you find that x equals 5 because it's the same as that leg, and y equals 5 rad 2? Great job. In fact, you guys did so well with example 1, I'm going to give you example 2. Try it out. Find n and x. So you paused it, you tried it, and you probably realized that instead of giving you the leg, I gave you the hypotenuse. Now if we go from leg to hypotenuse by multiplying by the square root of 2, it would make sense that we would go from hypotenuse to leg by dividing by the square root of 2. So in order to do that, that's exactly what I did. I divided by the square root of 2, and look, I got 16 divided by the square root of 2. Now we can't just leave that answer. The reason we can't leave that is because that's not rationalized, and we want to have rationalized answers. So in order to get that out of the denominator, I multiply the top and the bottom by the square root of 2. On the bottom there, I got the square root of 2 times the square root of 2, which will give me 2. So I get 16 times the square root of 2 over 2. I can then simplify the 16 and the 2, and I end up with my final answer of 8 times the square root of 2. Now some of you may look at this and you may notice a pattern. 8 is exactly 1/2 of 16. And in fact that will always be true. If the hypotenuse was 10, this would have been 5 rad 2. If the hypotenuse was 24, this would be 12 rad 2. The leg would be 12 rad 2.